and welcome to the Entertainment Vortex. Today we were at Brennan Theaters watching Rocketman. I was extremely excited to watch this movie after seeing the trailer, being a fan of Elton John's music, and seeing that they were going for a more abstract view of his life. I was just chomping at the bit to see this one. So much, in fact, that we actually signed up for 2 movies today to make sure we didn't miss it. This is a very interesting film. This film isn't like Bohemian Rhapsody, which I know everybody is going to compare the two. This film is told from the perspective of Elton John in the movie. Plus, he was also an executive producer on the film. So because it's told from his perspective in a specific place in his life, you're getting a very singular view of his life. Things are exaggerated the way he sees them. Things are sped up, and only the points that are important to him are touched on. And that really comes into play. The way they wrote this film really revolves around the idea that it is a retelling of someone's story spoken by them looking back. And I think that's fantastic. Right when you start the movie, in the first 5 minutes, you're going to see what's going on, and then you're going to see that it starts to get told by Elton John and why. It gives you an idea of, 1, where Elton's mindset is, 2, what stuck out in his life and what really molded him for good and for ill. Because of this type of storytelling, even the inaccuracies in the story, they work. It's not necessarily the truth, it's how he sees his past at that moment in time. With that being said, we actually did look up to find out what was true and what wasn't, because Bohemian Rhapsody, as we know, they changed a lot of the story for theatrical effect. Very little of this was changed for theatrical effect. And when I say very little, I mean like 5%. This was an extremely real movie. To all the interviews Elton John has given in the past, this is the story that he has been telling this whole time to the public, and it's still the story he's telling in the movie. This is what built Elton. I really like that aspect of it, that even the moments in the film that seem exaggerated or larger than life, that is actually how it happened, and it has been confirmed, and that's just amazing to me. I will also say that this movie is very character-driven. It's not just a series of events to get you through the life and music history of somebody. This is very personal, it's very emotional, it's very psychological. You see the ups and downs in his life, and you see exactly what makes up Elton John and why he is who he is today. And I adore that. All of that happens with great music. Elton's music is fantastic. This movie is definitely a musical where they are singing the story, unlike a lot of the stuff we've seen recently where there are musical songs in it, but it is a movie, like a biopic about a group, so their music just drives the biopic. In this one, they are singing instead of dialogue, so it is more traditional of a musical. Being a fan of Elton John's music all growing up, I didn't really know much about his story. I didn't really know much about how he started. I didn't know much how he became famous. I didn't know much about the early years of his life. I didn't really know much at all. I knew a lot of the stuff about Queen and NWA from Straight Outta Compton, and I knew a lot of the stuff of the other biopics we've gotten recently that were great. I knew a lot from their story, but this one I kind of went in blind, and I'm glad I did, because not only does the music help you flow through his life story, but it also helps you get really emotionally involved in his life story, and you find yourself rooting for him and wishing you could help, and just kind of getting in his mindset as the movie goes along and understanding where he's coming from. Then when the movie's over and you look back, you find yourself analyzing the movie. My favorite movie of all time is Pink Floyd's The Wall, and I think this movie has a lot of parallels to it. Obviously a very different story, but in the way that each thing that's shown on screen isn't necessarily meant to be just what you're looking at. There's more meaning to it. When you see the movie, you'll see what I mean. There's aspects where he'll be in a room and then he'll walk through a door and he's in a different outfit and he's back in the same room. And the way they do it is very much in the mind's eye, very abstract, but very impactful. I also noticed there was a lot of characters in this movie. I mean, there are a lot of people. You have pretty much everybody in his life for a long period of time, from his parents to his friends to the people he gets involved with business-wise in bands and stuff like that. And I never had any problem following it. I was never having an issue to figure out who was who and why they were there. And if there was a character that was glossed over, that was because that was the way I'll look back at that character in that chapter in his life, and I thought that was very interesting. It's almost as if you can look at anything in the movie and say the reason it is what it is because that's how Elton remembered it. And that's the weight it had on who he is, or the weight he feels it had on who he is. With that being said, you are in for a treat musically. You're in for a treat cinematography-wise. The acting is fantastic. You're going to see some actors playing roles that you did not expect. Taron Egerton knocked it out of the park. He sings all the songs. JB, my co-host, he looked up and saw a quote from Elton John that said that he wanted to make sure everybody knew that he didn't sing the songs. It wasn't just lip-syncing, because it's very hard to lip-sync Elton John's music. Taron does sing it like Elton John, but he also sings it like Taron. It's like a mixture of his own style and Elton's style, and he really liked it. So to get that kind of endorsement from Elton John himself, covering these songs that are so hard to do, it really shows. You really see it, because the soundtrack is to the point where I want to listen to it just as much as I would the original Elton John song. They have little touches of Taron in there, and I really like it. So I am not going to be surprised if this gets some Oscar nod. I would not be surprised if we get sound, if we get cinematography, if we get directing, acting for Taron Egerton, and I absolutely would not be surprised if we get some type of a costume nod, because the costumes they recreated from Elton John's past are just fabulous. One of the things he's known for, these over-the-top outfits, and the movie does not disappoint. Every single scene, he is in some crazy outfit, usually directly pulled from Elton John's past. And I really loved it. You get excited to see what's going to come next, and not just the story and the music and the actors, but also from the costumes. This movie definitely gives in a lot of different ways. With that being said, I am going to give this movie a 10 out of 10. And the reason I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, because I've been going back and forth in my head quite a bit since seeing it, is because the more I think about it, the more I love it. Ever since I stopped watching it, which at this point I think was like 3-4 hours ago, I can't stop thinking about it. The more I think about it, the more I'm happy about it. I want to see it again, because you can pick it apart. You look at specific scenes and the way they shot it and the way they acted it and the way they blocked it, and there's a reason for everything. And I absolutely adored it. So if you are a fan of Elton John's music, or are just curious about the man's life, I highly suggest watching this movie. It is not another Bohemian Rhapsody. This is its own thing, and it is a fantastic thing. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We give you multiple videos every single week. And we have t-shirts available if you're interested in those as well. Those are available down in the description below. We hope you'll follow us into the Vortex. We'll see you next time.